All right, welcome everyone. This is the How to Start Birding Help I've Never Done This Before webinar. My name is Brittany Like. I am the program coordinator for Detroit Audubon.
Hi, I'll jump in then. I'm Amy Green. I'm a Detroit Audubon board member and the director of the Belle Isle Nature Center.
So today we're going to kind of talk about a variety of different things, but as you guys probably heard, we won't really be talking too much about bird ID, but just for a little touch of it, what you have here is a golden crown kinglet on the front screen. We are planning to make this more of a series type webinar. So this first one's kind of more basics. The next one will probably be more equipment style, birding ID. And so it'll be more of a series. And so hopefully if you enjoy this one, you join us for the next few options that we're going to have over the next year or so. Right. But welcome everybody. So we're gonna give me a second to figure out why this, there we go. All right, so here's just a really brief overview. This is basically just summarizing what we're planning to talk about today, a wide range of things, but all in all, Amy, did you want to kind of use that phrase you keep using that I just—
Oh yeah, so I heard Brittany say, you know, we're not getting into like how to identify a bird yet. I wanted to pull it back even more. Before you can do that, you need to feel belonging. You need to feel like you're a part of the space, and you need to feel like comfortable enough to get out there with us. And so what I've been saying to Brittany is I am not an expert birder. I'm not a pro, but I'm really, really good at feeling dumb. I think we've all been there. And so the point of this is to have a discussion and share, like, how can you get in, like, what if you don't even know what's the difference between a birder and bird watching, or what are you supposed to wear, or how can I enter this space and not feel weird or uncomfortable or like a complete, like, you know, like for dummies, right? So the intention here is to say whatever you're thinking, if you've never done this before, and you're like, I don't even know about the birds yet, like, what do I put on my feet? Like, am I allowed to talk when we're doing this? All of those things, I'm here to say, I've asked it and I'm still asking it. And this is a place for us to share that, all of those things, so that you can even arrive feeling confident and comfortable, and like to go over those things so that you know that you'll feel accepted and part of this this exciting and fun thing called being outside with birds.
Wonderful. All right, so what we're going to encourage here is we're opening it with a few questions for you to kind of simmer on, think about a little bit. And so we're going to encourage you to either raise your hand using using Zoom, or it would be an opportunity to kind of unwind, relax, enjoy being outside, learn about birds, and kind of just, it's a mixture of a little bit of everything for me. And it's also, if I'm having a rough week, a rough anything, I go outside and I'm just, everything is better in the world. And so it's something I enjoy not only as a hobby, as almost like my personal therapist, but it's something that matters to me. And so, but every person's going to be different. You could probably ask every person, and birding would probably have some other meaning for them. And so that's what's so great about it, as a hobby, a profession, whatever it may be. Before we get to the next person, we have some comments as well. Al put, there are so many birds in Elmwood where I live. I want to start learning about them. So we won't touch on that too much this time. But we do want to eventually get into some of those birding ID facts and tips, but again, not necessarily today. Denise said, I'm just starting. I never really went out bird watching except my backyard or park.
Quiet serenity to watching birds. That's really attractive.
Yeah. So it's anywhere that you can go birding and that is an option for you is always recommended.
There is quiet serenity to watching
Amy,
birds.
did you want to pick the next person to talk?
Yep, sure. Now we've got Jessica's iPhone has her hand up.
Hi guys. So the birding, why I'm here is, it started with a bird feeder I bought last summer, and I was amazed at how quickly I attracted this variety of birds to my yard. I got binoculars and a guidebook for my birthday. And then, of course, with the bird flu, we were encouraged to take our bird feeders down and keep our bird bath empty. So I've been really sad. My husband found this webinar and emailed it to me. And I think what I'm hoping to get out of this, Amy touched on, is I guess I wouldn't even know or be comfortable enough. I'm very comfortable in the outdoors, but I wouldn't know what the rules are for birding or going out in a group. So it sounds like you guys have a great agenda. I'm really excited about this. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to help. I know we had a couple other comments that said wanting to learn what the birds are, what they're hearing and what they're seeing. So again, we actually have webinars that have been recorded that touch on bird ID, but also how to ID birds by call. And so if you check out the Detroit Audubon webpage, we actually have recorded webinars that touch on that, but we will touch on those in the future series for this. So sit tight. It won't necessarily be today, but sit tight and it will be something that will eventually be covered. You want to pick one other person, Amy?
Yeah, thanks. And I just wanted to mention, just reinforcing, yeah, I'm really glad that you logged in, and I really hope that we can help like bridge you to that next step of coming on out and recognizing that there's space for you there. So there's Krishnan and Swati.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Swati. So I like to take the bird photos like from last 2 years, like here and there. Whenever I go out, I like to take that. It's like very interesting. I've been like following many Instagram stories and profiles, and it's so like good. And my daughter is 14 months and she seems to love birds too. So I want to learn more about birds, so that I can help myself and also teach my daughter. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. And I like we said, I hope this is just the beginning of much more of this.
Shannon?
Thank you. Shannon, did you have your hand up?
Oh, is there another Shannon? Because I already went, but if there's a different one.
Oh, okay.
All right.
We're good then. And then, well, hi, Angela. And somebody mentioned the quiet serenity to watching birds. And then also just mentioning how they're everywhere, right? Like urban birds and local birds, they're ubiquitous. Everywhere you go, there's going to be some kind of bird around if only you notice. And to me, it could be like the most basic bird of all that other people are like, oh, one of those again. And I'm like, look at that guy, he's at the window again. So the cool thing about this, one thing to reinforce is that it's what you make of it. And in my experience, like I said, I'm an expert at feeling dumb here, but in my experience, I've never participated in something with being outside and bird watching where I've been made to feel like my excitement is not cool because it's not expert level. And I hope that we can reinforce that today.
Absolutely. Cool. So we're going to move on. Thank you for everyone that chimed in, that made comments. We're really happy to hear from everybody. So we're going to kind of get into some of the details. So basics of birding as a starting point. So one thing we really want to express just strongly is you do not have to be a pro. No matter who you talk to, everyone has different experience levels. And honestly, that's what's so great about it as a hobby is you don't have to be the smartest person in the room to be able to enjoy yourself. Honestly, what I would say is the most important besides that would be, don't forget to stop and listen. Just enjoy yourself. Because everyone does it for different reasons. And especially, for instance, like whenever it comes to stopping and listening, I mean, some people mention wanting to learn the bird calls. Something to keep in mind is, I know for me, I struggle with learning bird calls. However, a good kind of tip would be relate the sounds that you hear once you figure out what that call is to something in your life, your own experiences, to help you learn it better. But
one thing that I was telling Brittany today that helps reinforce when I'm just beginning learning all these bird calls, like to me, a cardinal just sounds like a car alarm. I hear those in my city and I hear the cardinals and I'm like, I'll remember that, the cardinal and the car alarm. Like now I've got this rhythm of, I know what that is just by listening. So making it your own, like there's no wrong way to do it. And Angela, if you look at that picture there, that is at Palmer Park in beginning of June. That was the event. I hope that you're in there somewhere.
Yes, I see myself.
And yeah, same, good point, Amy. So I know for me, when I hear a cardinal, I think of a laser gun from like Star Wars or something, where it's like pew pew pew. And so it's completely different for every person. And like she said, you're not wrong. It's however you remember it. Besides that, honestly, I think, and it really depends on who you talk to, but birding to me is about the community. It's about the people that care about nature, that want to go out and explore it and enjoy it, the people that support each other. And so it's just, birding is a community. You've decided to join our webinar, so you are a part of this community. So cool. So benefits of birding. So you can read all the stuff that are on here. That's always an option. To kind of summarize it, I guess, a little bit would be bird watching. The benefits to me are that it increases your reflexes, quicker eye, quicker ability to pull up your binoculars. So in a lot of ways, it helps when it comes to your physical health as well as your mental health. Because like I said, for me, it helps reduce stress, which is a huge factor when it comes to your mental health. I mean, you can see this one picture of this guy holding a camera. Honestly, if you're into photography, like a few people have mentioned, and you get a big lens, let me tell you the arm workout that you get. I've been borrowing a lens from a photographer I know, and it's a 600 millimeter because I can't afford that myself. And the first day I went out, he was like, oh, grab a tripod. That's great. It's super heavy. You'll want a tripod. I'm like, well, if I'm out walking for 2 hours, setting up a tripod for a split second is not worth the time. So I don't bring the tripod. Holding it up for a few seconds, my arm starts shaking because it's only like 10 pounds, but after trying to sit and hold the camera for 10 minutes to get this picture of a bird that's fluttering around, your arms start killing you. So in a lot of ways, it helps with your physical abilities as well. So yeah. Did you want to chime in on anything?
Yeah, just a couple anecdotes or notes about that. With the mental health of being outside, I think we'll touch on it a little bit later about people have their own barriers to that too, but I think we all learned in this pandemic over the past couple of years that nature's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. All of the state parks were completely, packed, not just Belle Isle, but all of them. People like some of our folks here bought bird feeders because we're stuck in our house looking outside. And so it's really reinforced lately, I think, just how important it is for all of us, and not just all the wildlife out there, but for us as humanity to connect with outside when we can. And then the part about the reflexes, Bryn, you're gonna have to answer that in a second. For me, this is like a confidence boost that goes back like 40 years. So growing up, I grew up, my big brother was such a nature outdoors person who's like got this hawk and coyote vision, driving down the roads, wherever we'd go. And my dad too, they'd be like, oh, look at that. Did you see that? Did you see that deer? Did you see that rabbit? No, I didn't see it. And we're past it now. So I spent like a lifetime growing up of being like, I don't know how they're seeing this because I'm not seeing anything. Like where's the brown thing in the brown grass? And so birding has finally given me the triumph of like, I see that, I heard it, and I see it, and I like that. It just feels so good to finally like start honing that skill. It's never too late, I'm telling you, to finally get back into that. And somebody asked you a question, Brittany.
I saw that. So yes, Shannon asked, do I have a bird on my shoulder? So yes, this is my little friend. I have her at my house. When I lead webinars, sometimes she'll just hide in my hair until I'm done, and it keeps her from screaming in the background. But to kind of touch on that a little bit more, thanks Amy for that. I love hearing experiences like that. I've actually had probably in the last month, 2 people have come up to me and told me how much birding has changed their life, and they only just picked it up. Some individual told me how just the world was just really getting rough on them. Life, I mean, work was stressful, was really hard. They just really didn't know how they were going to go day to day because it was just horrible. They went outside, went on a bird walk, and it was like all of the stress, all of the concerns of their daily life just washed away. I had another guy had something similar that he said, and he was just exhausted from everything in life and went outside, sat up, I think it was on Belle Isle. He sat down on Belle Isle in the woods and just listened to birds for like 2 hours. And he now has this desperate need to be able to hear birds. And he was like, how do I get involved with this? How do I find out more? And I was like, you found us. You're here, you're where you need to be. And that's like I mentioned, increased social health, community. We are a community of people that love nature, love birds, and want to just enjoy it. And I know something that I've been kind of telling people lately is, especially if maybe you've just got into it or you're interested in getting into it, I kind of view it as we have this internal battery that we don't know is there until we go outside and we recharge it. It's like this internal solar battery that it needs to be outside in nature, around wildlife. And then when you go out there, it charges up and you're like, oh, I didn't realize how much I needed this. And then once you've realized you need it, you can't get away from it because you start having a bad day and you're like, I just need to go back outside. I need to go have some time to myself outside with nature, with birds. And honestly, it just changes your world. Once you realize how much you really need it and you start going out and enjoying it, it's hard to get away. So, yeah, outside of that, we kind of talked a little bit earlier about what people wanted to learn, but maybe some people want to chime in on chat or even want to raise their hand real quick and say, what maybe have you benefited from being outside or going birding? We want to hear, and I'm sure other people would love to hear it as well. Or if no one has any additions to what me and Amy said, we can also just move on.
We'll have more time to chat.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, it's Christina. Sorry, I'm just leaving the house. Well, I just started officially birding, the first week in June. As Angela said, I went to a birding event and it was wonderful. But just me simply being outside a lot during the pandemic, or the initial part of the pandemic, just really, really got me interested in it because just the sounds. I just like the birding sounds. It just makes me feel so at peace. And I did a little reading and I heard that after it rains, the sounds are amplified. And so it's just peaceful for me. It just puts me at peace, and I continue to walk and walk and walk. And next thing I know, I'm up to 10 miles or 11 miles. So it's very peaceful to me.
That's awesome. Thank you, Christina. Yes, Lauren put being outside in the simplicity of birds. And then Denise put, I wake up hearing the birds. I just love that sound. Yeah, once you realize this need to have it, it's hard to escape that, really, honestly. It's amazing. Angela, you raised your hand. Yes.
Yes, I would agree with everything everyone has said. In addition, I've been gardening now for 14 years. And I remember that when we moved into our house in Highland Park, the birds got on my last nerves. Like they would get on my nerves so loud. But when I started to learn that those sounds actually helped to grow the food that I was growing in my garden, I had a much bigger appreciation for all the noise that they were making. So now I welcome it. I'm like, oh, good. Now my food is growing even better. So that's a connection to nature that I think a lot of people don't know about, because I wasn't aware that their bird sounds actually help the food to grow. So that was something that I wanted to share.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I know my husband woke up, I think 2 months ago, we heard a Carolina wren outside of our window. And I was just like, I saw it and I was like, oh, there's the Carolina wren. And he was just like, oh, that's the thing that's been making noise outside the window. I was just like, yes, it's a good thing. But if it disrupts your lifestyle and what you do every day, it can seem like a bad thing. But once you get so down in your life and you need something to really bring you back up, if you find it, that's usually the thing that is just beautiful. We have Susie put, we're a half mile from the city limit, so our early morning time with the birds is such a great way to start the day. And then Christina put, wow, didn't know that, Angela, thanks for sharing. So
Yeah,
great
it's
job.
all so connected. Thank you. And I need more Detroit Audubon webinars, because I could be listening to a Carolina wren all day long and not even know what that is. I'm here for everybody to be like, what is that? That's really cool. I don't know what it is, but I love it. So
well, one great way, if you don't know the birds, is there are phone apps that help with their IDing, which we'll touch on very briefly later this in the webinar, but they're always great ways to help. So we're going to kind of jump over into birding opportunities. So one thing I want to stress with birding opportunities is you can go birding anywhere. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it doesn't have to be that you go to a park in the middle of nowhere or a nature preserve or anything. It could literally be backyard birding. It could be maybe you go on one of our Wayne State campus urban birding trips. There are so many places you can go birding that you don't even really need to go outside of your comfort zone. Maybe you're worried about things if you go out into the woods. Cool. Elmwood Cemetery, Wayne State, your backyard. There's plenty of options to go birding that you don't have to go out of your comfort zone.
I noticed somebody mentioned all the birds on the wires, like on the telephone wires and stuff. That counts. Driving in the car down the freeway looking for hawks, that counts. Like it all counts. It's all legitimate.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's what works best for you. But outside of that, I mean, there's nature walks. It doesn't even have to be about birds. You can go on a butterfly walk, to a flower walk. It could be a bug walk. I mean, whatever it is, whatever makes you happy. We have plenty of organized field trips through any Detroit, any Audubon chapter. It doesn't even have to be with Detroit Audubon. Maybe you live over in Arizona and there's an Audubon chapter over there. Or nature centers. I mean, Amy works at a nature center on Belle Isle. They lead field trips.
Josette asked, this is such a perfect segue. If you go to a park like Belle Isle, how do you know where to look for birds once you get there? I really would recommend checking in with the folks. We're closed for renovations. We're opening in about a month or so, but we've had programming outdoor and walks and hikes for about a year now. And how do you know where to look? I can tell you, I have, you can come see us and we'll tell you some cool places to look, or ask Brittany, but also they're everywhere. I've actually just been driving home in the late winter and watching an eagle give itself a bird bath in the Detroit River. So sometimes it's serendipity. We can tell you where the eagle's nests are. There are killdeer just running across the street, like mad at you for living. I think what I would recommend is find a place on Belle Isle that makes you happy and just stay there for a little while. Call it like a sit spot and visit it. and start observing. Like, I think the key, the one thing, you know, if I had one piece of advice to give about bird, I have two. Can I give them both right now? I have
Yeah,
two.
go for it.
One is like the whole point of sharing this with everybody is like, you know, my point of like trying to feel like you belong in this, and how, and your entrance point, and you're all here, right? And the best advice I have is, how can you be other when you're here? You're already here, you're already a bird, right? But then the other one is, I think the key to all of it is just being open to noticing it. So if you allow yourself this time to come, if you go to Belle Isle, find a spot that makes you happy and return to it a few times, and you'll start noticing so much stuff that will guide you to your next step or to the next thing that you notice. And then third, come see us at the Nature Center and we'll set you up.
Yeah, in a related way, she mentioned contacting Detroit Audubon. You can talk to Belle Isle. So say you want to take that a step further, and maybe you're searching for specific birds, whether it's Detroit Audubon or some other professional, we can tell you. I mean, we're here for you to call, to contact, and find out, pick our brain. Honestly, that is what we're here for. We love sharing our love and knowledge of nature with you. That is our job. That is what we love to do. But like I said, maybe you're looking for a specific bird. And so like winter along the water is the perfect time to see waterfowl. Spring on the inner forested trails are the perfect time to see warblers during migration and those like really cool birds as they're flying through. And so we can give you tips of maybe not a specific area, but we can tell you basic habitat to search for that might help you find birds that maybe you're hoping to see. And so the knowledge is just vast, and we're here to help answer any questions that we can. And so which kind of brings us back into kind of beginner birder courses or webinars. Those are there for you to constantly go back to and rewatch as many times as you want. Maybe it takes you longer to learn. Maybe you just want to absorb it little by little. And those webinars are great because they're pre-recorded. And so you can always go back through, rewatch them. You can even rewatch, say this was recorded, you could go back 30 seconds and hear me say this over and over, which hopefully you don't. I don't sound that good. But Angela put, this past weekend, I used the Merlin app and it listed 10 different birds coming through my yard. I was shocked. That's actually the app I was going to mention later. Honestly, Merlin is great, especially as you're learning your bird calls. It can tell you what you're hearing, and then that way maybe you know, it says a warbler is calling. You know warblers are at the top of the tree, or maybe someone tells you they're at the top of the tree. So then now you heard it and it tells you it's there, so you can look up at the tops of trees and you now know what you're searching for. Again, that knowledge is all there. We can help you, and by going on our field trips, we can help answer these questions in person as well. So
and there will be, like there will be subsequent, like we said, spoiler alert for those of you who got in a little late, we will be announcing the second part of this series where we do get a chance to go out together and start to learn those things of like kind of the norms, right? Like what kinds of bird, you know, like what kinds of birds are in the tops of the trees and why, what kinds of birds are in the shore and why. So that builds your kind of your systemic knowledge of how, you know, how to know where to look and what you're looking for.
Yeah. And last thing before we go to the next slide is maybe, and I'm sure a lot of you are, but social media is amazing for looking into birding opportunities or virtual capacities. I mean, I use, there's various apps you can go on that help with that. Let's see, what is it called? Meetup is great. I know there's so many organizations that use Meetup as a form of kind of advertising events, or like I mentioned, social media, birding groups and clubs are a great place to connect with other people that are interested in learning more, or again, having people that are experienced share their knowledge with newer individuals. And so again, you're a part of a community of people that love birds and nature.
Yeah, I was telling Brittany today that TikTok has a bird of the week. So every week you get 30 seconds of like all this cool information, you know, just like one little dose about a bird, you know, typical backyard bird. And like I learned last week that people pay attention to the neck size of the bird as like one of these identifying features. So I didn't know that. Thanks, TikTok, like bird of the week. So there are things out there for you to kind of dip your toes in it wherever you're, wherever you're already comfortable.
Exactly. So this is kind of just us. It's another semi-summary, but so kind of what's helpful to know. So in the next slide, we'll talk more about clothing. So that's kind of just a simple summary, but something I really kind of want to stress is what to bring. So I'm sure a lot of people, when you're going out for the first time, maybe you see other people with this huge backpack full of stuff like this bottom right picture. And you're like, oh, I don't have all that stuff. Maybe you don't have the money for all of that stuff. And it's intimidating. But also kind of keeping in mind personality types. I mean, you don't have to feel like you're doing something wrong because you don't have everything that is maybe in this picture. It's what you're comfortable with and what you want to incorporate that's going to make sure you're comfortable, because what's most important is your safety. And so what I would stress of everything, it would mostly be water, snacks, phone, bug spray, and sunscreen, because those are the bare minimum things to keep you safe. And so that's something to always keep in mind. I would, outside of that, yeah, it's like I said, it's kind of based on personality, because you can pack a lot more, but maybe you're a big packer. And so like, cool, that huge list is great. Or maybe you're laid back and you're like, no, just bare minimum's good. And that's fine, honestly.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Nope. Cool. No, that's cool. The other thing I was going to say, if we want to open up another little mini discussion, is what are you concerned about being outside? Like maybe there's some fears you have, maybe there's some concerns you have, maybe some curiosities that you've had for a while and you weren't sure. Ticks. Josette says ticks. Yes. So we'll touch on that a little bit, ways that you can avoid it. We mentioned closed-toe shoes, comfortable clothes. One of the easiest ways to help reduce the chances of ticks is, or the best ways, stay out of tall grasses if you can. They love tall grasses. Long pants. And when I say pants, ideally loose, thin material pants. That way you can wear them all year, which I'll again touch on later. So then you stuff your pants into your long socks. And that way it'll keep the ticks on the outside of your pants. And so that's a great point. A lot of people are usually concerned about ticks. I don't want to scare people off just because they're worried about ticks. But yeah, I mean, it's something that's real. You're out in nature, they're going to be there. I'd also stress spraying bug spray around your shoes and your lower pants, because if you wear that bug spray, it does deter the ticks. And so if you stuff your pants, wear some bug spray, it'll mostly help reduce that problem from really being a concern. But the big thing at the end of every day, if you ever go outside, I don't care if you're in your backyard, if you're out in a public area, always do a body check for ticks. And if you can find a tick within the first day, honestly, you're probably fine. You don't ever have to worry about there being any health problems as long as you find them within a day. And so it does help. We have a couple other thoughts. I read that if you put duct tape with the sticky side out on your pant legs, yes, that's another option. There's also what's called gaiters. There's lots of ways you can reduce ticks. If you don't want to buy gaiters, just again, like maybe you just don't want to spend the money and you don't go out often enough, duct tape is a great option because they get stuck. And it makes you feel really good if you have that on your pants and you're just like, ha, you didn't get on my legs. And you're just like, whew. But again, even if you see them on there, still do the body check. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Angela put, what are those boots called in the photo? I think I need some like that. I know nothing about ticks. How do you search for them on clothes or your skin? Those are actually really great questions, Angela. So those are you call them mud boots, muck boots. There's a few different things you could call them. Those are really great if you're going into an area with either really deep mud or standing water. You can also wear them when you're out and about. You'd want to put your pants into, again, your socks, pants into your socks, put those shoes on. They're good options. Hiking boots are great options, but again, we'll kind of touch on clothing a little bit later. How do you search for them? So ticks are, say maybe you have like a mole, maybe on your finger or something. They're usually maybe the size of maybe the end of a ballpoint pen, like the flat side of the pen. They're usually about that big at like a bigger size. They're not usually too big. But you'll look for those. They're usually pretty slow moving. They do like dark, moist places. So armpits, behind your ear, between your toes, your no-no zones is what I call them. You really just want to check those dark, warm, moist areas, just because that's their favorite place to be. And so when I come home, usually I'll check everywhere that I can, and then I'll have my husband check my head for me, just to make it a little easier. Are there places ticks are more likely to land or embed themselves? Again, they really like those dark places. If they feel like they need to, they'll embed kind of quickly. But again, if they can, they will try and find a darker little cozy spot. So maybe even behind the back of your leg, behind your knee. So areas like that. Christina mentioned she Googled them, they're white.
I think they're white if they're on an animal and they're completely filled with blood, but they do typically, like before they engorge themselves, they're typically like a dark, like black color.
Yeah, black or brown. They have, I think, 6 legs.
Yep.
Kind of like a pretty round body with like a little half moon head.
I would say they, like, if you're out walking around, you most likely wouldn't find one like on your bare skin.
Yeah.
But if I were out in this, they might find that, they go underneath, like kind of burrowing back down my back or something like that. But, and the other thing, if you do get a tick completely embedded in you, to be very careful about pulling it, trying to make sure you get the head too, like tweezers, pulling it out. Not just like yanking it out, and then put it in a plastic bag and take it to the doctor if you want to.
Yeah, but again, honestly, if you find them within the first day, and if you're concerned, you can always check in with your doctor and they'll give you tips. Adele says, what if you live alone and there's no one to help check you out? So you can check it on your own. So usually you can feel them in your hair if you run your hands through your hair. I usually will check, I'll run my fingers behind my ears. You can check if you have a full body mirror. You can always try and check other locations that maybe like your back, again, maybe your no-no regions. You can check in a mirror. And so those are ways that you can check. Or honestly, what I would recommend, if you don't have someone at home, I would personally be fine if you want to ask maybe your field trip leader, or maybe you have a friend that went with you to help check your head. I mean, safety is important, and if they're a friend or someone that's out there with you, they understand and they'd probably be willing to help if you really needed it. But yeah.
Just anecdotally, I haven't heard feedback from any instances of field trips that we've led locally where people are returning with ticks and reporting them out. It's something that we should talk about, and it's something to be aware of, but this is not around here. They're not non-existent around here, but this isn't something that we hear feedback from people saying, hey, I was out and we found a tick on us.
Yeah, generally the rule of thumb is if you see deer somewhere, there's chances for ticks. So the other thing to keep in mind is if you're on a paved trail, usually it's much less likely that you'll find them on you. And so again, kind of going back to that comfort level, if you're uncomfortable and worried about ticks, maybe you meet up with us in, again, more of an urban environment. Get yourself comfortable, ask us questions, kind of work with us, and we'll help you. And we can help answer those questions in more detail, especially if you're not comfortable yet in those situations. So we always want to make sure that we can be there for you to help bridge that gap of maybe concerns, questions, and knowledge. So, but we will move on because we're going to touch on some of this again a little bit later. Yeah, so moving into clothing. So I mentioned this a few seconds ago. I mentioned the long, loose, thin materials. Honestly, the biggest thing I could say helps above all else is always dress for the weather. If you're going outside, always check the weather before you go, because if it's going to rain, you don't want to be in cotton clothes and then you're soaking, you're uncomfortable. You want to check for the weather. That way, if you need a rain jacket, if you need rain boots, you want to be prepared. From there, yeah.
Oh, I just want to add, but that's what that looks like for you. You're not going to show up at a birding event, you know, in a jean jacket with cool band patches all over the back and feel like you don't belong because everyone else is in like gear from REI or something. Like, come as you are and whatever dressing for the weather looks like for you.
Exactly. Yeah. We want you comfortable. What's recommended, and again, it could be maybe you have a loose pair of running pants and those are what you're comfortable in. Cool. That's great. I do recommend all year. One of my biggest things I always push on is long, loose, thin materials, whether it's long, loose pants, long, loose shirt. Those are great because they protect you in a lot of ways. They help protect you against getting sunburned. They reduce the chances of getting bit by mosquitoes. It gives you a layer of protection against ticks. Like we mentioned, it keeps it a longer time frame before they have a chance to get on your skin, which is always great. But then at the same time, what's cool about long loose material is in the wintertime, you can wear layers underneath it to stay warm. And in the summertime, it's loose. And so even if it's hot, you actually stay cool in long loose material because the cool air is able to get into the pants and it stays there. And so that would kind of be my recommendation. But again, there's no real wrong way to do it. As long as you're comfortable outside, that's really the goal. And it doesn't have to be fancy, expensive things from REI. Honestly, I have so many clothes that I've bought from Goodwill. I highly recommend just buying what you're happy with. It doesn't matter if it costs $100 or $1, or maybe you got it for free. It's whatever you're comfortable in. But again, kind of the shortened version is long, loose, thin materials, and above all else, layers, especially in the wintertime, because in the winter,
you go birding in the winter.
Yes, birding in the winter is amazing. We go out all the time. And it's surprising. A lot of people are like, oh, if you're going from your house to your car, you're like, oh, I'm comfortable. This is fine. But honestly, if you're going to be standing outside for 2 hours, if not more, out in the cold looking for birds, you're standing around for at least 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes more, depending on how committed you are to seeing some birds. You're going to start getting cold. And so even if you're sweating in your house before you go outside, trust me, you'll be more comfortable the more layers you have. And worst case scenario, if you're too hot outside, you can take off layers. And that's what's great about them. And so, and if you aren't sure if you are wearing enough, bring a bag of layers that you can add onto what you're wearing. That way, if you're too cold, you're like, hey, let me go to my car. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it the whole time unless I add layers. And so that's what's super nice about it, is you can wear that nice thick winter jacket, but maybe you wear a vest underneath and then a sweater and then a t-shirt, or like you can wear layers. And that's what's so nice about them. I have on the right here this kind of basic diagram. You don't have to follow it to a T. It's just kind of a good idea of showing you waterproof and windproof are really helpful at multiple times of the year. It shows that base layer, mid layer, insulated, and shell. And so there's multiple layers you can have, but it doesn't have to be fancy, expensive clothes. It can be whatever you happen to have.
And yeah, I've seen more birders in the winter than I have in other months. There must be something really magical out there in at that time of year. So I hope y'all have a chance to get out there and see what it's all about.
Yeah. I know Amy mentioned, wait, we go outside in the winter. So the only time we don't go out birding is when our safety is compromised. So if there's thunderstorms, yeah, we're gonna get out of there because we want to make sure you guys take care of yourselves. But if it's raining, birds are outside all the time. They're still gonna, if they're out there, we're out there. I'm sure some of you have heard that birders are a little crazy. It's because we're just, once you get into birding, you're just like, I really want to see them. The weather doesn't really matter so much. You're just having such a good time. You go out no matter what weather it is. But yeah, so we do go out birding even in bad weather, rain, wind, or cold. It's worth it. So just all in all, be prepared for the weather, guys. When Lauren says magical indeed, especially seeing a snowy owl in the winter. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I love the winter waterfowl, but owls, a snowy owl is just, it's gorgeous. So I'm gonna have a really cheesy joke here, guys. Bear with me. So we're about to talk about socks and shoes, but I want to reiterate, we're talking about birding shoes, not birds in shoes. So this top right picture, it's not what we're talking about, but we're going to talk about that bottom right picture instead. So excuse my cheesy ass joke.
No, that's good.
But yeah, like I mentioned, long socks are crucial. You don't have to have them be very expensive. They don't have to be fancy hiking socks. It's whatever you happen to have. Long socks, shove your pants into them, and it makes a load of difference, especially to help keep things that you don't want on you. Shoes. So the bottom right picture is, it kind of shows a few different types of shoes. There's no right or wrong way when it comes to shoes. It's really about your comfort levels, or whatever you happen to own, honestly, and it's okay. And if someone ever tells you differently, don't listen to them, because it doesn't matter. It's just people have different experiences, but honestly, whatever you happen to own is fine. However, there are things I'd strongly encourage you completely avoid, mostly because it's going back to that safety issue. So we do encourage closed-toe shoes, boots, tennis shoes, sandals that are strapped onto your feet. All of those are fine. Closed toe are better just because you don't know what you're going to step on. You don't know what you're going to come across, but it's perfectly fine to not wear closed toe shoes if you don't have that. I would just entirely recommend avoiding flip-flops, heels, and going barefoot. Again, that barefoot, maybe someone that's like, oh, I just love walking around barefoot. Well, they do make tennis shoes that are called barefoot, and it's pretty awesome. Your feet are safe, and you still get to enjoy that feel of almost having everything pretty close to your feet. But the flip-flops, just because if you're walking and it's muddy, you slip, you could easily hurt your ankle. Heels, I mean, let's be real, do I really have to get into heels? How many of you would probably try and walk on a trail, a muddy trail in heels? It's probably not a good idea. Angela put, I had an owl fly right over my car at the I-75 service drive near 7 Mile last year. It was surreal. Never ever experienced anything like that before. I think it grabbed something from the grass. Yeah, there you can see birds anywhere. It's kind of what we were mentioning, is you don't necessarily have to go somewhere fancy to see a bird.
And Nancy says, what bird says burrito, burrito?
I don't know. I am so sorry. You might have to check out that webinar. We brought on a professional that knew how to learn, that knew the bird calls by sound. I don't know So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to help you, but you might also be able to Google it. Google's amazing, honestly.
I don't think I did it much justice anyway.
Yeah, so binoculars. So I'm sure everyone's just like, all right, what about binoculars? There is so much involved with that. We could talk for quite a while about maybe certain recommendations and details of why certain binoculars would be better than another. What I would recommend is wait to get binoculars. If you have them, cool. But if you're not sure, just wait. Detroit Audubon, we have field trips all the time where we let you borrow binoculars and you can get a feel for what type that you like, see if it's something you're interested in. It can be a semi-spendy type of investment. But honestly, it's like I said, there's no reason to rush into it if you're not sure. There's plenty of places you can borrow them. Belle Isle has them. There's also the Ferndale Public Library, though you do need a Ferndale Public Library card. There's the DNR Outdoor Adventure Center. They do require you have a family membership, and then the Huron-Clinton Metro Parks will offer it for their guided birding programs, but you can't do it as you can't rent them as an individual. So, and those are some of the places locally. Any of the Audubon chapters more than likely have them as well for you to borrow. Angela put, I really like the binoculars we used. I do want to get binoculars soon. So Angela got to go on one of our field trips, and we usually carry this huge bag of binoculars. So that way people can borrow them. We just have you register so we know who's borrowing them. But yeah, all in all.
And then just before we move on from binoculars, and this is a bigger conversation that we'd be happy to have with you on, and if it's your first time, don't be shy. You could say like, how do you use these? We had someone last 2 weeks ago say, I didn't even know there were 2 dials on binoculars. So good. Now, like, let's show you how to use this so you can feel awesome and like try them out. You don't have to arrive knowing. People are happy to help. The burrito bird, according to Google, is a cardinal, which is my car alarm and Brittany's. Like, I already forgot what yours was. So
laser guns.
Yep. And Rochelle says you don't have to spend a lot of money, and that's kind of what we're here for. Do you loan them out to other groups?
So we lead a lot of field trips. I would have to talk to our board to see if we can loan them out to other groups outside of our field trips. I don't feel comfortable answering that at the moment. But if you want to email me, I'd be more than happy to relay that to our board and see if we have permission to do that. But I don't want to commit unless I have that answer. Christina put, Brittany was
question though.
It is a great question, because sometimes people, maybe they don't want to go with a group. Maybe they want to go with some friends. I'd love to be able to say yes, but again, I don't have that answer at the moment. Christina put, Brittany was my lifesaver. I had no clues how to use my binoculars. Yeah, so that's what's also great about going on a field trip with people that know how to use them, is we can show you how to use the binoculars in a way that will make it easier for you and honestly more enjoyable. Because what point is having these giant hefty things on your shoulders if you don't know how to use them? Because then you're just, oh, I see a bird over there, I have no idea what it is. But we can show you how to use the binoculars. So again, that's what we're here for. So, all right, food and water. So all in all, what I'd say about all of this is plan as if you're going to be outside longer than intended. If maybe you're outside for 2 hours, maybe it's 1 hour, 4 hours, always plan as if you're going to be out there longer. So that's why I mentioned earlier, food and snacks and water. It's always good to have like a granola bar in your back pocket. I mean, what if you're hungry? Maybe you're walking a lot more than you thought and you're getting a little hungry. cool. Now you can at least satisfy that hunger a little bit. Water, always important to have water.
And my question was, I'm sorry for interrupting, but like,
you're cool.
First time going out, what if I'm, is it weird? Are people going to look at me if I'm eating food and no one else is? Like, what are the rules here? Is this allowed? Is it not allowed? What if everyone has a snack but me? Like, those are those things that are inhibiting when you've never done it before, right? Yeah. But take care of yourself. Do what you got to do, and that's okay. And that's the actual answer. And then along with observing, if suddenly everybody gets silent and is like pointing and exciting, maybe don't open your bag of chips then. But other than that, I don't think that there are rules about whether you can or cannot take care of your basic needs when you're out birding. Some people bring food and some don't, and that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Personally, my opinion is it's okay to eat on field trips. Like Amy was saying, take care of your basic needs. If you're hungry, maybe you're worried about affecting the group. So maybe just linger towards the back. So if people are bothered by it, it's read the room, I guess, if you're concerned about it. But honestly, your biggest priority is taking care of your own body. So just make sure that if you're hungry, eat. It is okay. Kind of getting into,
going back to the binoculars. It is on the website, isn't it? Some recommended equipment.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Stop it. Yeah, I'm working on creating a list on our website so that way people can go to it to pick out maybe some recommended binoculars. Angela put maybe a list of recommended binoculars and other useful equipment. Is that on your website in case the other organizations could get funding for some? They'll know what to buy. Yeah, so we're looking to have that prepared and put on the website before our next our webinar that we're going to be covering for this series. And my goal is to have that up pretty soon. And so hopefully that won't be a problem. Kind of getting into the PowerPoint a little bit more. So we talk about food and water. So it's important to be hydrated, but something that I do encourage you to check into is before you go out to a location, maybe you're by yourself, check to see if they have restrooms, because if they don't, you don't want to be halfway down the trail and be like, oh, nature's calling. And so I do recommend checking into that. If it's with a guided tour like ours, we usually try to let you know ahead of time if there's restrooms, just so you can be prepared. That way, if before you get there, you can stop at the gas station, go to the restroom. And so keeping in mind, not all parks have restrooms. So kind of keep that in the back of your head whenever you're out and about. It's not something people really think about too much. So staying on trail. So this is kind of a rule of thumb. It's not always exactly right, but typically the rule of thumb is to stay on trail. It's better for nature because that way, the more people stepping in an area, the more damaged that nature area is. And that's why they create paved trails or even unpaved trails. It's to kind of designate, hey, this area is specifically designed for you to walk on it. So that way we can keep everything else preserved pretty well. But there are situations where there are exceptions, but for the most part, yeah, just stay on trail. Even if you can get a really cool picture of a bird, it's better to try and stay on the trail. Amy, you mentioned earlier the leaving what you find. Can you give an example of that?
Oh, like if you flip over a log and see some really cool, everybody else is looking up and I'm like, ooh, what's under here? Just make sure you put the log back. Things live under there. So it's okay to take a peek. Just put it back when you're done, or take pictures. It's always great to have some pictures, and just being careful when you're out there. I don't know if there's anything else, these are things that I think are
pretty obvious.
Yeah,
but just in case they aren't, we figured why not talk about it just in case. Respecting wildlife. So this is a really cool picture of this individual. Secretly, it's actually my husband. He was feeding a bird and he was really excited, but like, it was, again, you're kind of respecting wildlife. You see all these people that they're really excited about taking these pictures of, maybe they're holding up a baby animal, or maybe they found something, they're picking it up, and it's really cool to take this picture. But what's cool about this one is he just put his hand out and the bird came and flew into it. And so it's kind of giving that animal that choice. Typically, so this is an exception. This is a space where it's okay to feed wildlife like this. But typically, wildlife usually don't want to approach you. They're scared of you. And so it's very unlikely this happens on a regular basis for most people. Ideally, like we kind of have on here is, you're in their home. Be respectful. Don't pick up an animal. I mean, if you were walking around with your child, would you want someone to come over and pick up your kid? I mean, it's the same thing. It's just not great to pick up wildlife just because there's that opportunity for them to bite you, to attack you. And it's not good and it's not fair to them. But yeah, and so kind of keeping those things in mind, like Amy said, take a picture. This was great. We didn't hold that bird. It came in, I took a quick snapshot, and it flew right back off with a lovely little peanut in its mouth. Oh, it was really happy.
So Brittany, everybody's gonna want to know where's that opportunity exists to feed a bird in your hand.
Kensington Metro Park, great place. Love going there. If you attend one of our field trips at Kensington Metro Park, we provide the bird seed, and the birds will come and land in your hand. And you have a guide that tells you what birds are landing, what area is best to see what birds. And then you get these fun little pictures of, maybe you go with your significant other and you take a picture of them holding a bird. It's just always a fun experience. But kind of going into that a little bit more, honestly, this is a great experience, but it's an area that has kind of been designated as okay to feed wildlife. Altogether, I highly discourage from feeding wildlife in an area that's not designated. I went to Gallup Park for one of our field trips in March, and it was a problem because there were trumpeter swans that they're big white geese-like birds. They're different from mute swans, which if you ever want to learn more about that, we can always help you with that. But these trumpeter swans were walking around on the shore, and they walked right up within like 3-4 feet of us. And a lot of people are, that's like so exciting, that's cool. But it's actually a problem because now these birds have the potential to get food aggressive, which means that that next person, if they don't have food or if they only feed them a little bit, they might have a bad experience. And so it's actually highly encouraged to not feed wildlife. If you ever go out to Kensington and you see a turkey approach you, they've been fed so much that they're now food aggressive. And so you really want to avoid just attracting those birds. And if they get close, just wave your hands. Just be like, shoot, go away. Look,
you're a bigger bird.
I'm a bigger bird. Pretend like you're a bigger bird. But yeah, all in all, just that's what ends up happening is people feed these animals. Kind of jumping into that a little bit further, don't feed birds bread products. Don't do it. They're bad. It's bad for them. Really, really bad for them. Their body doesn't process it right. So don't feed birds bread.
Yeah, that's something so many people on Belle Isle and many parks, they so mean well, like they really want to do something kind, and they just don't realize that that's not, it's going to hurt the animal's stomach. Yeah. So if you notice that, gently, people get mad. It means a lot to people. It's a difficult thing. I know that there's new signage out on Belle Isle now that in quite a few locations that identifies this as like, I know like this is something that people have seen for years, but it's really not good for these animals. They get so much food out there. And Mr. McGregor's homestead, right? Please don't litter. They, always want that for our animals. And
You wouldn't litter in your own house, don't litter nature. That's always my rule of thumb, is treat the outside like it is your house. You want to take care of it. All right, so be considerate of others. So this is something that I know I've really been trying to stress more lately with some of our programs, is kind of just, can you talk while birding? Yes. It is situation based. So for instance, say you're attending what seems like a really advanced birding course. And we're going to try and start listing our bird walks as kind of basic, intermediate, advanced, those types of listings. And if seems like everyone's really, really experienced and they're all pretty much just not talking at all, yeah, maybe you don't talk nearly as much or linger towards the back. So if you chat a little bit, people aren't disturbed by it. But honestly, there are so many programs that are beginner, intermediate, or just a fun group of people getting together where honestly, talking is encouraged, in my opinion, because we're there to learn. We're there to communicate and talk and teach people. And so talking is definitely okay. So it's kind of going what Amy said, is like read the room a little bit, but altogether, yeah, talking's okay. From there, yeah.
I always talk to the birds. Once we fall in love with something, we talk birds, flowers, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and ask the questions. I think, everybody's their own level of beginner, right? So if you asked me, like, what's that red bird? I'd feel so cool because I actually know that one, right? So there's always somebody there who's just, you're giving just a little boost. So whatever you're asking, nobody was born an expert birder, right? So we've all been there. Like, I'm lumping myself in with expert birders. We've all been, I know experts. So just ask your questions, and it's fun and exciting. It really is all about what you're noticing and observation and honing that for yourselves, and other people are there to work with you and like help keep refining that, for sure. And just recognizing that everybody's approach to being outside and interacting with it is different. So what that, personal space is different with different cultures. How we revere nature is different with different cultures. How accepted society has made you feel that you're allowed to be in spaces. And so coming into that, knowing that your experience might be different than somebody else's in that same exact space, just gives everybody a little bit more room to share it together with how that looks for them, and that the expectations aren't the same across the board, even though the space is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And last thing before we move on to the next slide is, no question is a stupid question, because you're coming in at different experience levels. And if it's something that you're curious about and you don't know, great, ask it. We would love to answer your questions, whatever they may be. Okay. And then honestly, above all else, enjoy yourself. Honestly, you are there to have fun, relax. You don't have to record everything. I mean, I'm a picture person, so that's something I enjoy, but you don't have to stress about capturing every single moment. My husband reminds me all the time, take the camera away from your face, Brittany. Enjoy what's around you. And my defense is always, then I can enjoy these pictures later. But at the same time, if you're too focused on the camera, you lose some of that relaxation time because you're not really absorbing what's around you. So don't forget to take that camera down. Kind of, we've mentioned this briefly, but all in all, you don't have to know every bird, and we don't expect you to. I don't know every bird, and I went to school for this, so it's okay. And we're here to help each other and to work together to help everyone learn more things and new things. Your experience levels are all different, but one thing I've been really trying to encourage on our field trips is for the field trip leaders, and even if they don't say it, honestly, if you see a bird, point it out. Because honestly, if you're out and about walking and then all of a sudden, maybe you see a bird before anyone else does, and you don't know what it is, you don't say, hey, there's a bird over there, and point it out. no one else is going to know what's there if they don't see it. And so you have a higher chance of everyone having a much better time if everyone has more birds that they can see. I cannot tell you the number of times I'll be walking out on a field trip and I turn around and I see a group of people staring at something, and I walk back, I'm like, hey, what are you looking at? And they once in a while it's this bird, and I'm like, oh my God, guys, come back and look, it's this bird. And like everyone's super excited. And so it's super important to really work together, point out birds, ask if you don't know what it is. It's okay. But all in all, it's also good to know it's not about the number of birds you see.
That one's important. I've noticed when I look at even the posts, the social media posts from Detroit Audubon trips, like 30% of the pictures are flowers, trees. Like you can't have a bird without the environment it lives in. And we started this with a lot of you sharing just how powerful nature's embrace is. So it's all this bigger thing. Birds are, birds might be your gateway to getting out there, but the whole experience has meaning, and it should. So, I guess like a bad day of birding, what even is that? But it's still better than like being stuck inside wishing you were out there.
Yeah.
Is it Tajwa? I think I know most of my backyard birdies. That's great. The migrating birds still have a lot to learn. I really want to meet this waxwing that I know is here. He just needs to come to my feeder. I don't see waxwings at feeders much either. So,
well, you can also plant, there's various plants that you could plant that help attract your native birds. So crab apples are a really popular food that the cedar waxwings enjoy in the spring and winter sometimes. But then also cedar trees. Cedar waxwings, cedar trees, they love cedar trees throughout the year. They use it for nesting. They use the berries to eat in the wintertime. There's so many different plants you can plant that attract birds to your yard, which is great because it helps the ecosystem. And so, but we won't get into that too much right now. We mentioned earlier kind of like a sneak peek of this is the first of multiple. So not everyone, I think, was able to stay the whole time. Firstly, thank you for joining us today. We'll answer some more questions here in a second, but as one final reminder, this is one of a series of how to start birding. And the second part, we're actually going to have an in-person as well as another webinar later this kind of early fall on September 1st, which is a Thursday. Thursday, September 1st is going to be on Belle Isle at 6 p.m. And we're going to kind of take a little bit of what we talked about today, but also talk a lot more about that part 2. We're going to talk about binoculars, how to use them. How to use them. We're going to talk about maybe a little bit of the bird ID, but kind of take all this a step further and really walk you through what those expectations are, what to expect, show you how to use it, maybe help give you tips that you can work on for your birding. And then we'll take that and do it in a virtual capacity. So maybe you can't make it in person. We plan to do a live webinar on September 29th at 6 p.m. So kind of like we did today, it'll be live. We'll answer questions, might incorporate some in-person, some live directions and whatnot. But all in all, we're going to do this second part on September 29th. And so we hope you can join us. We will be advertising it probably here in the next month or two. If you want,
I'm sorry, Brittany, but we failed to answer one of the most important, pressing, and basic questions about birding. This is one that I've always come with when I say, like, I don't know how to enter, like when I'm in my mind of like, how do I even enter this environment? Do you need to watch birds early in the morning?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of our field trips tend to be early in the morning. They're not all. It is the best time to see birds. Early bird gets the worm, so early bird actually has a chance of seeing lots of birds, but it's not a requirement. You can see birds at any time of the day, but early morning, probably between, like as soon as the sun is risen in the morning to Sometimes 10 or 11 in the morning is still a relatively okay time to see them before they start slowing down. The evening is also good. So early morning and right before the sun goes down is another great time. We have our beginner birders field trip that we offer once a month from 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday. That's also a great one. And it's evening. And so that way, if you're not an early morning person, that might be better. But those are typically the best times. But that's not to say that you can't go out to a park on your own at 1 o'clock in the afternoon if that's what works for you. We have Mr. McGregor's Homestead put, has anyone ever seen an indigo blue bunting? So he says, wow, they are beautiful. They only stop briefly, but what an honor, one of my faves. I actually went out with our intern on Tuesday and she got to see her first indigo bunting and was really excited. They are a beautiful bird. Thank you. Angela put, ooh, that is what I need to learn more about, plants that attract birds. So we have had plenty of webinars that talk about the plants that are helpful for birds. And so again, you can check out our website. We have all of those pre-recorded. We are always happy to help give other tips as well if you ever need to. Bruce put, do you need to watch birds? Oh, so we answered that question.
And Angela, just a little plug for Detroit Bird City. So if you want to talk about these parks that have been replanted with, you know, I think that the quickest way I can say it is some folks from Detroit Audubon's Conservation Committee worked with the city to identify, and worked with the neighborhood, most importantly, to identify places that used to be parks, haven't been played in, kind of got turned into dumps, and they cleaned them out and instead went back in and made intentional meadows and planted wildflowers specifically for attracting birds, and the health of the entire neighborhood improved in terms of the folks living around those sites feeling what we all started with, like that magic of the birds just being around us, and the animal, not just the birds, but all of the pollinators and all of the other animals in the neighborhood kind of returning to go through these places. And so you don't have to plant a whole tree. There are lots of plants that you can plant and a place to go and experience that without waiting. If you do check on the Detroit Audubon website, there are at least 5 parks identified as part of the Detroit Bird City project. And you can just go hang out and see the various stages of intentional meadows for the birds.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Yeah, that we are definitely trying our best in multiple ways to really help birds and nature in general. Mr. McGregor put, buddy system, if you don't know the area, or at least let someone know where you are, always practice safety. Yeah, that is, thank you for that. That's a great point, and honestly something we failed to mention. Honestly, safety is always the biggest importance when it comes to you going out and about, whether it's in your backyard or somewhere else. If you're not familiar with an area, go with a friend, because it's better for you to be safe and have a wonderful time. If you don't want to go with somebody, like he said, let someone know where you're going. Maybe give them an address. That way, if maybe they don't hear from you, at least they know where you're going to be and have been. It's better to be safe more than anything else. Rochelle put, great information. Thanks so much for the program. And Bruce put, excellent program. Thanks, guys. We're really happy you could join us. We hope this answers all your questions.
If you have more though, email the staff and keep the questions coming. Yeah, Angela, thanks for reinforcing that point about just being safe. But yeah, if you have any lingering questions, we always want to do better and make this worth your time, because you're sharing it with us, and time is so important for everybody. And maybe there's another chance for us to do this again. So your feedback is really helpful. If we completely forgot, like, oh yeah, when's the best time to see birds? Like super basics, right? Let us know so that we can keep improving this for everybody. Thank you so much. I'll see you on Belle Isle. Brittany will see you all around the city. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys. And feel free to email us with questions. We'd be more than happy to keep answering them. But
Thanks.
hopefully you go get dinner, have a great evening, and we'll see you at some events here in the future. So, all right, have a good evening, guys.
Take care.